Hi everyone, welcome to our CMSC podcast series. This is our second podcast following CMSC. Just a bit of background, CMSC stands for Consortium of Multiple Sclerosis Centers, and they have a conference once a year, and this year is in Denver, Colorado. We are fortunate enough to receive sponsorship to attend the conference, so we would like to give back to the MS community back home in the UK. So let's start off with introducing yourself, Del and Carmel, please.
I'm Del Thomas. I'm an MS nurse that works in Hereford. And for those of you who don't know where Hereford is, it borders Wales. And I do really always say that it's because nobody knows where Hereford is.
I'm Carmel Wilkinson. I'm an MS nurse in South Tyneside and Sunderland NHS Foundation Trust, which is in the northeast of England.
And I'm Mavis Iyer. I'm an MS nurse in Southampton, and I'm also co-chair for UKMSSNA. Right. What session have you attended that inspired you?
Actually, there's been a few. One thing I was really struck by was burnout, because we've all experienced a lot in the last couple of years, and we've been very resilient to start off with, and then we became fractured, shall we say, in a nice way. And it was really interesting that we went to this session, and it seems to be a whole world problem, not just an NHS problem. You know, by the year 2025, they predict that 47% of healthcare workers in America are going to leave.
That's in 2 years.
That's in 2 years' time. And it's not just because of their retirement age. A lot of it is because of burnout. So they were saying that, you know, there's a real drive in this country to develop burnout services. We call them wellness services now. And I think in our country, lots of trusts are putting a lot of investment into wellness and, you know, recognising that there is this burden at the moment. So that was really interesting. I felt it was a real whole world problem, wasn't it? And it wasn't just us, and because you know the NHS gets such a bad rap all the time.
It's because you're in it, and we feel that you know the NHS is always on everybody's tongue, isn't it? The NHS is broken. It's going to be privatised. All these things. It's actually not just the NHS. It's actually all of the you know worldwide healthcare not able to cope with demand, and it's far exceeding what they're able to cope with, and it's causing well the same issues that we're having in the UK. And it was strangely reassuring, wasn't it? That we're not on our own. It's not. But the fact that the burnout session was fantastic. There's note. Amy Sullivan gave a cracking sort of illustration of what happened during COVID. You know, it broke our little hearts in two, and then afterwards it seems to be in tiny little pieces. So the illustrations that she did were good, but the actual physical exercises that we did, is it physical exercises I want to say, or practical
Centering
exercises.
So you do the breathing.
But also just really, if you find yourself getting out of control or out of where you need to be, literally looking at your feet. And it's such a simple thing to do, but you're actually grounding yourself. But the breathing technique that she used, ensuring that, because during the session, there was half of the audience, probably more than half the audience, including us two, were actually hyperventilating. We did an exercise to count our breaths, and we were hyperventilating. And that was
how many breaths a minute did they class hyperventilation as?
Anything over 15.
That's amazing.
So
that's everyone.
Exactly. So that was it was a real, you know, we've got some good things to bring back. Because we've all got mindfulness going on, and it always feels like it's for somebody else, doesn't it? And I think we're
the worst, I think.
We're terrible.
As nurses,
terrible.
We're too good at patching things up.
And just cracking on. You've been MS nurses for a long time.
A while.
I won't say how long, but have you learned anything new at this conference?
Yes, we have. We went to a session by the lovely Wallace Brownlee. The irony of coming all the way over here to listen to one of our greats. He gave us a session on differential diagnosis. That a couple of eyebrow raising moments, things we didn't know, There's literally this year, from a worldwide, it's ACTRIMS, isn't
ACTRIMS,
it? Consensus group on optic neuritis guidelines and the diagnosis of. So that's something that's coming brand new. We really didn't know about that, and that's quite. You know, from my perspective, why don't I know? Why haven't I heard? Which sort of illustrates the value of these
education. And conferences.
Conferences.
And the other aspect was that they predict that a quarter of all MS diagnoses are differential diagnoses. So it is a huge issue. So ACTRIMS also set up working parties to look at this, to look at real world data, to look at is it an education issue? What is the issue? Why are these? Why is it still happening now in today's age? So there's been a real drive. So we'll see that change, and that's only just happened this year, isn't it? 2023. These working parties have been set up, and it's a global group. So there are some neurologists from the UK that are involved in that as well.
And that's one of the hot topics actually that Dr. Patricia Coyle led a session on, and she made a good point around excluding all other diagnoses before applying the McDonald criteria that I heard is changing again.
No better explanation. It's been a little bit of a theme going through as well, hasn't it?
Were there any sessions that actually you thought, oh, I would have wanted to see that? So is there something missing this year in the agenda?
I think the CMSC is a clever conference because it meets the needs of neurologists, nurses, radiography, pharmacists, AHPs, and there is a lot of exciting new stuff that's going to be coming out in the horizon.
Diets,
absolutely. But I think some of the basic symptom management, I think, was missed a little bit. Some of our colleagues did go to a sexual dysfunction clinic with Fred Foley. He's a published neurologist in sexual dysfunction, but of course we have the beautiful Denise and Leslie that talk so eloquently in our country. So that was interesting, but I think it is the symptom management arm was lost a little bit this year.
Do you agree?
I do. We had a lovely talk by Anna Shah, who gave some sort of real usable data on breastfeeding and in managing DMTs, managing DMTs and planning pregnancy and IVF. That was the other thing, wasn't it?
Risk
of relapse
has increased.
I think that has changed throughout the years, hasn't it? So we were very careful, and now we're a bit more relaxed and a bit more open.
I mean, we know with a lady who's pregnant, they normally quite well when they have MS when they're pregnant. But I didn't really appreciate why that was. And we always know that there's a hormonal element to it, but I didn't realise that the B cells depreciate, in pregnancy, and that's probably one of the reasons why it's more inactive. And you have the risk of relapse afterwards, the clinical relapses, but actually afterwards there's a high increase in lesion load as well, and that's been seen in MRI studies. So that was interesting, but. So at that point, if a woman's going to be doing exclusive breastfeeding, wasn't it? That lesion load decreases. So we should be really, actively, but it's got to be exclusive.
It has. And I mean, that's it's always that dilemma, though, isn't it, with breastfeeding? Always going to be, because people get a little bit twitchy about putting them back on treatment, and so it was good to hear that reassuring bit of information that the lesion load was.
But Dr. Ruth Robson, she led that consensus, didn't she? So which is amazing. It's from the UK as well. So what sessions do you think that we need to give back to the UK?
Okay, so I think the differential diagnosis is something that we can take some, explained to you before about one of the slides. It's a real usable slide looking at, I'm pulling this out of the differential diagnosis. This is, it was a slide within. But it identifies areas of the brain, the MRI, where lesions occur and what physical effect that has on the person, and that constantly eludes me. And it was just, it's a beautiful couple of slides that are going to be really usable for the rest of the UK, so we'll be bringing those back and sharing.
Because that's one thing that I really enjoyed, actually, the neuroanatomy. And you know, if the patient has a lesion in the brainstem, these are all the symptoms that they can have. So that is something that I think we need to give back to the UK, because not just for new nurses, but for more experienced nurses, so you have to constantly revise every 5 minutes or something. But yes,
I think the other thing is, you know, we've talked a lot in the last couple of years about progression. And how it's very difficult to diagnose progression, whether it's, you know, secondary progressive or primary progressive. But there is a real drive. The next, I think, 3 or 4 years is going to be quite exciting. They're looking at various different biomarkers. What's the name of it? GFAB. That may be potential to assist. A spinal cord atrophy, maybe potentially, you know, a diagnostic tool, and there is a micro activity in the spine that's seen by our conventional MRIs as well. And they're all also trying a vast amount of different treatment options, from our conventional DMTs to other immunomodulating. So I think that's
the drive for, this is the other thing that we don't do as a matter of practice in the UK, the drive for spinal MRI. And that's always going to remain contentious, isn't it? We're never going to get away from costing, I think, is the issue. It's always going to be the issue.
So I think that fits in nicely with PYRA, with aging, immunosenescence. So it's being discussed more and more, and you know, our education and learning around that is also increasing, which is good for our patients.
And these are new terms. PYRA is a new term for us. And the prodromes. So they were saying that the prodromes for a relapsing remitting MS is different to the prodrome for a progressive MS. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like.
Thank you very much, and you know, thank you everyone for taking the time to listen to this podcast, and see you on our next podcast. Okay, bye.
Bye.